Hello chess friends and welcome to Azadov's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So in this series we see opening principles, middle game strategy and middle game planning and of course the endgames. So today I wanted to talk about some middle games again and I wanted to show you how you should play against your opponent's bishop. So you may think it's not something special, this idea, why should I simply play against one particular piece? But you see, chess doesn't have to be always so complicated. Maybe in a middle game you try this flank attacks, maybe you try the central pawn breakthroughs, maybe you try this tactical ideas, and you sometimes lose the game and ask yourself what went wrong here. And you see, sometimes if the position allows, you can simply create your attack simply by one particular piece of your opponent. So there are these common positions in which maybe a knight is not good, and there are these common positions in which a bishop is really not good. So I wanted to show you these three examples in which a bishop is really weak, and the first example is this getting out of the way of the bishop. So that means that you have to put your own pawns and maybe your pieces on this opposite colored square. So you see we have here now the position. Black has this light square bishop, and of course we want to get out of the way of the bishop, so we want to put all of our pieces and maybe the pawns on the dark squares. So the first instructive game that I wanted to show you, it was a play by Ruslan Ponomariov against Peter Heine Nielsen, and let's see now this getting out of the way here by white. So here Ruslan Ponomariov played, of course, the move g5. You see, nothing special, nothing fancy, as I always love to say. You see, he didn't go here for this attacks. He simply is getting out of the way of the bishop. So here a6 was played, f4. We have here rook on c8. Now f5 with preparations to play the move f6. So here bishop on d7, f6, g6, and now h4. We have rook takes on c1, rook takes on c1, rook on c8, and now rook on c8, bishop on c8, and now bishop on c5. This is now an important move, which doesn't allow here black to go with the king on f8. So now black's king is really out of game and we can play freely with our own king. So here bishop on f5 was played, king on e3, bishop on h3, king on f4, bishop on f5, d4, bishop on b1, a4, a5. I'm not going to explain all of these moves, as I always love to say here in my middle game strategies. I always love to just talk about some main strategical ideas here, not about this tactical ideas and this particular moves. Of course, b4, a takes b4. Now bishop takes on b4, and now bishop on d3. And here we have a5. So you see now this position. We are getting out of the way of the bishop, so I think it's not a complicated idea. We have now all of our pawns on the dark squares, and we don't have worries for this bishop, because the bishop, of course, cannot take any of these pawns. So now we can simply play with our king and with our bishop. So bishop on c4 was played, king on e5, bishop on b3, king on d6, king on c5, king on king on c5, pardon me, and now king on h8, which is now a forced move, because you see, if black tries somehow here the move bishop on a2 or bishop on b3, we can go here king on b6, and of course black cannot defend anymore this b7 pawn. So here after king on h8, now king on b6, bishop on a6 has to be played, and now an important move, bishop on f8. So now after king on g8, now bishop on g7. Now you see we have created here the sort of a Zugzwang position, and I've explained this Zugzwang also in my endgame strategies. So here bishop after bishop on g7, well, black is forced to do this h5 move. If he moves of course the bishop, he will lose this pawn, and then we can simply push after that this move a6. So h5 was played, g takes h6, and now king on h7, king on c7, king on g8, king on d6, and now bishop on c4. And here an important move, king on e7. In this position black resigned because he's forced to go with this king here, maybe after this move h7. So we are deflecting this king from the defense here of this f7 pawn, and after that we can play f7, f8, and the promotion. So let's see now this other way how I should play against the bishop, and this is the position in which you should block your opponent's bishop with our own pawns. So here is the position. It was a game between Magnus Carlsen against Fabiano Caruana. Magnus Carlsen here with the white pieces, and he has sort of a slight advantage because he has the bishop. So here Caruana plays first the move bishop on a3, attacking the bishop, and of course he gets rid of the bishop here. So here queen on c1 was played, bishop on b2, queen on b2, and now let's evaluate the position a little bit. So you see we have now these two pawns here, and they're blocking out this light square bishop on f3. This bishop is not gonna play in this game because it's hard in order to get it active. You have to play maybe the move e4, but if you play the move e4, well, then you leave this isolated pawn here on d4, and in an endgame of course you don't want to have this isolated pawn situation. So you see this e4 move is really not possible. So this bishop is sort of positionally blocked out here by Magnus Carlsen, and I simply like here more the position of Fabiano Caruana. So you see, you can sometimes put your own pawns and try to block out your opponent's bishop. It's also an idea, but you have to be careful, because in such positions like I set up here for you, you see this pawns are also blocking out the bishop, but this is not the perfect blockade here, because you see we are talking about an endgame now, and here black has the possibility to play this sacrifice here, bishop on c4, and of course you cannot take because black will simply play b3, and then after that a2, and similar idea. So you see, in an endgame you shouldn't try to put your own pawns on this same colored squares, because they're vulnerable to your opponent's bishop's attacks. You see black has also possibilities to play maybe here bishop on c8 after a couple of moves, then after that bishop on f5, and maybe bishop on b1, and attack all of these pawns. So you see, this is not the position in which we have blocked out the bishop. So here it's possible because we are in sort of a middle game, and okay, the bishop can try maybe to go into the game here to the square of e2, but again you can play moves as a6 and maybe b5 ideas, and again block it out with our own pawns. So okay, I hope you realize these two examples, and now I wanted to show you the best way how you should play against your opponent's bishop, and it is the position, it's this so-called bad bishop position. So you see, this is now a game of mine that I wanted to show you. We have here the position. Here I had this light square bishop on e6, and my opponent has also the light square bishop on e2, and you see all of these pawns by my opponent were on this light square. So you see this bishop is blocked out by its own pawns, and of course I don't mind to trade off here the knights, because then we continue the game simply with this bad bishop situation for my opponent. So here my opponent tried the move b4. I played of course a takes b4, a takes b4, and now knight on a4, attacking the queen and the knight. Here queen on c2 was played, knight on c3, and now queen on c3, and now I have accomplished what I wanted. Now I've created this bad bishop situation in which my opponent has really this really weak bishop, and you see my bishop is perfectly fine because it's on two nice diagonals. It's aiming on two nice diagonals, and now I can simply play me with my other pieces. So here I played queen on f2. We have bishop on d3, but you see the activity of this white bishop is not good. Now of course rook on a2. I really created this battery on the second rank. Now rook on g1 was played. Rook from d to a8, rook from b to f1,
queen on e3, now rook on e1, and now queen on d2. I don't mind to trade even more pieces here, because again I will continue and transpose into an endgame in which my opponent has this bad bishop situation. So here queen takes on d2 was played, rook takes on d2, and now of course I can bring my other rook also on this second rank. So rook on d1, rook on a2, b5, and now b6. Now I use this example in which I bring all of my pawns, you see, on this opposite colored squares. So I don't want to have, of course, my pawns on this light squares. I want to have my pawns on this dark squares as much as I can. So here h3 was played, now I played h5. Here h4 was played, and now g5. H takes g5, f takes g5, and now king on h2. h4, you see, now my pawns are all on the dark squares, and I've really paralyzed the bishop here on d3. King on h1, king on f6, king on h2, and king on e5. And after a couple moves, I really managed to win the game, because these pieces are all paralyzed by my opponent. Now my king can go here into the game through the square of d4, maybe here to f4 and e3 and similar ideas. So you see, white is simply stuck to the defense of these bishops, and here this bishop on c4 is really an object of my attack, because my bishop is of course attacking it, and I managed to win this game easily. So I hope you realize these three ideas. So let's again see how you should play against your opponent's bishop. So of course the first way is getting out of the way of the bishop. So that means that you have to put your pieces and pawns on this opposite colored squares. The other way is of course to block your opponent's bishop with our own pawns. So if your opponent has maybe the light square bishop, you can sometimes block it out with your own pawns. And this bad bishop situation in which your opponent really blocked out its bishop with its own pawns. So I hope you realize these ideas. And in the continuation, in this middle game strategy, I'll talk again about this bad bishop situation. So because I think it's really an important strategical idea in a chess game, and the good thing, this bad bishop idea you can create really in an early stage of the game, but I'll explain it more in my next video. Okay, I hope you realize this idea, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Meanwhile, of course, you can watch my other basics in chess videos, and you can also watch my chess tactics videos, and of course you can subscribe to my channel. Thanks you for watching, and chess is the best, of course.